Hello and welcome. This news report is from NBC 10 WJAR, and it's rather interesting.
Saw that motion was denied by the defense attorneys in the Cannone case. First and foremost, were you surprised or shocked that it was denied?
I was, in light of the number of people, jurors, that contacted both the prosecution and the defendant. I'm surprised that she simply denied the motion. Clearly, there's some confusion here at the very least, and it's incumbent upon any judge to determine what that confusion is. She's received affidavits indicating that people found an acquittal on murder. If that wasn't the case, it doesn't take too much to make that determination. Really, what should happen is in chambers on the record, the foreman should come in and tell the court what happened. The judge didn't want to hear that for whatever reason. And in light of...
And we don't know if the judge didn't want to hear it, but we do know that in Massachusetts, the judge is permitted to select the foreman, the foreperson. And we do know that the foreperson was giving the Judge Beverly Cannone, he or she were giving the judge notes. We do know that. We know that the foreperson had a perfectly reasonable ability to convey to the judge what was going on with the jury. And we also know that the foreperson did not tell the judge that the jury had reached unanimous verdicts. Or perhaps the foreperson did tell the judge, and the foreperson and the judge decided not to tell the world that there were verdicts. Again, we may never know what actually happened between the foreperson and the judge, but we know full well today, August 25th, 2024, we know full well today that the judge, despite in her own filing, her recent filing from a couple days ago, where she admits, where she agrees that the affidavits are true and accurate, where she agrees that the jury came forward and said they were unanimous on counts 1 and 3. She agrees and she acknowledges that the jury came forward post-trial and said they were unanimous on counts 1 and 3. She considers those statements true and accurate. Those are the judge's words. True and accurate. But she does not want to do anything about it. She wants to, again, focus on the form. She wants to pretend during trial that she cares about the jury, that she's looking out for them. Post-trial, she's treating them like she used them, like they didn't really matter to her, like she was pretending the whole fucking time, and it was a facade, it was an act. And that their confusion, the jury's confusion, is on the judge. It's not the jury's fault. It's on the judge.
The fact that this woman is on trial for murder, I think she should have at least inquired a little bit further as to what the confusion is about.
Could you see the defense possibly making an appeal?
Absolutely. I mean, this is an unusual circumstance, but for the court to not act at all, in light of the fact that 4 separate jurors at 4 separate times came out and said that they had a unanimous verdict of not guilty on the murder, to do nothing and just deny a motion when a person's life is at risk like this, I have no question that there will be a strong issue on appeal.
For this legal analysis to say that about Judge Beverly Cannone, it's already widely accepted by people all over the world that Judge Beverly Cannone should have been recused from this case. And it's already accepted widely around the world that despite not being recused for this case, that Judge Beverly Cannone displayed on her own, completely and entirely on her own, she displayed her blatant, overt bias toward the prosecution and against the defense and against Karen Reed. She was overtly annoyed and frustrated with the defense and with Karen Reed, but she seldom became frustrated with the prosecution. She never got mad at Lally. She never got mad at the prosecution. She never got mad at the jurors. She only got mad at the defense and Karen Reed. So for her to continue to show her blatant bias against the defense, to not even consider what the defense is arguing in their motion to dismiss counts 1 and 3, for the judge to not even consider it, to not even entertain it, and to completely ignore the jury's confusion, which again is her responsibility. It was on her that the jury were confused. And it is on her that the world did not hear the verdicts. She still takes zero responsibility. This Judge Beverly Cannone, she is arrogant. She is entitled, very much like the members of law enforcement that so-called investigated this case, the Karen Reed case. Judge Beverly Cannone carries the same fervor, the exact same fervor as the members of law enforcement who are all being investigated right now, except Brian Albert, except the McCabe's and the Alberts. The members of law enforcement who were in Canton PD, who were in the Massachusetts State Troopers, they're all being investigated right now. And despite that, this judge holds firm her fervor that she does not give a fuck about Karen Reed's rights.
Knowing that the jurors were just deadlocked on just one count of the 3, why couldn't they just make a split decision or just say, we find her not guilty on the murder, we find her not guilty on leaving the scene, but we're just unsure of this last one? Could they have done that? Or
they could have done that. So clearly where the confusion came in is that they must have found her not guilty on the murder, but were deadlocked on what we call the lesser included offense of manslaughter. They could have come back with that. If they found her not guilty on the murder, then jeopardy does attach and she cannot be retried for it, even if they are not hung on the lesser included offenses. So they could have done that. I think because of the way it came out, they were so confused on the jury form that they didn't know they could do that. I think they all agreed to not guilty on the murder, but because they were hung on the manslaughter, they came back with a note saying that they were hung. They didn't go into details, and that's where the confusion lies. If the court asks a juror to come in and explain why they felt that this was a unanimous verdict after the fact, she should do that, but she hasn't.
Right, because Judge Beverly Cannone is clearly, at this point, at this stage in this game, Judge Beverly Cannone is clearly part of the cover-up. She is clearly part of the cover-up. When even after everything that has happened post-trial, even after everything, she is not moving. She won't budge. She does not care what the jury has to say. She does not want to hear them. And just for anyone questioning whether the judge has any legal standing to do anything right now, that is bullshit. She is a judge. She can do whatever the fuck she wants, actually. Every judge in the U.S. can do whatever they actually want to do, with or without case law, with or without law. And surely, without law, without case law, their decision can always be appealed. But she can do whatever she wants to do. She is the judge. She can choose to create new case law if she wants to. But she clearly does not give a fuck. She does not love freedom that much. She does not honor freedom that much. She doesn't care about anyone's freedom, not truly. She only cares about helping her friends, the prosecution, the Alberts, and the McCabe's.
That these jurors have come forward, even though the motion has been denied, doesn't this kind of put a little bit of a damper on the prosecution's case? Or could it possibly offer some sort of deal, knowing that the jurors have once already kind of said, We didn't see her guilty of murder. We didn't see her guilty of leaving the scene. But the lesser of the counts were like, so could they kind of come together and say, should we maybe offer her a deal? Could that be a possibility?
It's a very strong possibility. Having been a prosecutor, if I had this case and I knew that there was some evidence out there that these jurors were going to come back not guilty on murder, I would definitely make an offer. The question is whether or not the defense would take it. You run a risk by not taking an offer of manslaughter, but I think it would be wise for the prosecution to do that. I think the evidence that came out during the course of this trial really had an issue with some type of problem relative to the police and whether she actually did this. This is putting aside what the jurors did in this case. Just the facts themselves created a real issue of doubt as far as I saw.
And also,
and if the prosecution does, I don't think the prosecution is going to make an offer to Karen Reed. And even if they did, I highly doubt Karen Reed would take it. Karen Reed would be foolish to take any offer. And again, I don't think she would anyway. She has maintained her innocence. She has maintained an innocent energy this entire time. Karen Reed, even not having a guilty conscience at all, she even asked initially if she could have hit John O'Keefe. That's how innocent she is, that she was even willing to question her own actions in this ordeal. When people are guilty, when they know they did something fucked up, when they know they did something wrong, they will not even question. They won't let it be known that they are questioning their own actions. Karen Reed very clearly was comfortable and humble enough to question her own actions that night to the extent that she asked the question, could I have hit him? That's not something someone who's guilty says. That's something that someone who is willing to accept responsibility says, if in fact she did it. That's something that someone says when they're humble enough to say, what are all the possible scenarios here? Karen Reed is innocent. So again, I don't see her taking a deal like that. And I actually see the state of Massachusetts wasting tax dollars all over again, wasting money all over again to retry Karen Reed, knowing full well that the jury found her not guilty on counts 1 and 3.
This case is extremely high profile, local, nation networks, everyone's kind of watching it. Could this change venues? Can they find a jury that has no opinion, no bias? Could that be a possibility?
Probably not. Because they didn't get a change of venue in the first case, they probably won't get one in the second case come January. And I think even though it's high profile, the problem is it's high profile nationally. So there's nowhere that they can go where no one has heard about this case. And so as a result, I think it'll be tried in the same courthouse where it's being tried now.
And now that this trial is set for January, do you see any other changes happening that could maybe pause the trial or push it back? Or
this most recent motion, denial of this motion, might create an emergency appeal. The reason for that is because if this jury, it's determined somehow, and the case is remanded back to the court to make a determination as to whether there was a unanimous verdict on not guilty, that will come before the next trial. So the appellate court may very well take this and say, look, let's at least find out what's going on here. And if it's determined at that point that, yes, they found her not guilty of murder, then of course the trial wouldn't go forward. If they found that that was not the case, then jeopardy would not have attached and they could go forward. But that's something that should be determined before January.
And I will leave the link to the video in the description below, but I have heard that argument from other legal, from other lawyers, from other people analyzing this case, that should the defense team file an appeal with the appellate court, then it would put Karen Reed's trial for January on hold until the appellate court makes their decision. And I am praying that the appellate court sees through the bullshit, sees through Judge Beverly Cannone's bullshit, and acquits Karen Reed of counts 1 and 3. And we know that at least one of the jurors are willing to come forward and testify. And I could see them testifying in the appellate court and saying, yeah, we were all unanimous on counts 1 and 3. We were expecting further instruction from Judge Beverly Cannone, and she completely left us stranded. And that's exactly what she did. She left the jury stranded during trial and post-trial especially. Today, this is Judge Beverly Cannone leaving them stranded with their conclusions, with their concerns that Karen Reed should have been acquitted. And the judge doesn't care. This judge needs to not be overseeing any other case in Massachusetts right now. This judge really needs to be stopped. She needs to be stepped down. She needs to be forced to step down. And in my opinion, she needs to have her bar license taken away. This Judge Beverly Cannone should not be overseeing any case ever again. She is too corrupt, too biased, and too emotionally compromised to have a rational analysis of any case at all. Thank you for watching.